Hey, this is John Lee Dumas, the founder and host of Entrepreneurs on Fire. And if you're wanting to learn how to embrace change and navigate through disruption as a leader, then listen to the Leadership is Changing podcast with my good friend, Denis Gianoutsos. He's prepared to ignite.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos.
Oh, sure. I was born in the Soviet Union. Talking about why I'm in leadership and change, you can imagine that Soviet Union as a region has gone through tremendous amount of disruption and change in the last 100 years. So I was born to a family of political dissidents, and most of my great-grandparents and grandparents I executed. And I grew up searching for a way to live in a world that felt a little bit more hopeful. So that's my background.
Wow. Well, what an amazing background. And so were you born in the US? Did you move to the US?
I was born in the Soviet Union, the part of the Soviet Union that is now called Kazakhstan. And most people don't know a few things about Kazakhstan. Number one, it's the 9th largest country in the world. So we have a lot of land and almost no people. Why do we have almost no people? Because about 90 years ago, in the late 1920s, early 1930s, the Soviet Union government created a genocide that murdered 40% of Kazakh people. So This is the history of my land. I came to America on a scholarship to study civic education, psychology, and management in 1998.
Excellent. And you've got a doctorate in organizational behavior, is that right?
Absolutely. That was an absolute gift. This was my professor group, a group of professors in college. Pretty much kicked me. I was refusing to do a doctorate, and I wanted to go to New York City where all of my friends went after college, and they said, you will not be happy, so you will apply, and you will say no only when they say no. So I went on and did my doctorate very young, right after bachelor.
Wow. Brilliant. Excellent. And so what was the transition like for you coming to the US to live or going to the US to live? Or what was that transition like for you?
Everything you can imagine. I came here in 98. At that time, we had no emails. I called my parents once a month on a 5-minute prepaid card. And for the remaining of the months, they didn't know if I was alive or dead. The best guess was that if I'm dead, they will be informed. That's about it. I love the amazing quality of education. I got such a glorious education in terms of my college and then later my doctorate. I went to school in upstate New York, then I went to Case Western. There is no way I can ever repay the quality and the care that I got during my education. And that carried me. I mean, the care of professors and community around me is what carried me.
Yeah, isn't it wonderful when you get the right people around you to support you? It's amazing what you can go off and achieve and be, which is brilliant. And I think it's really important that we do network. But I think the key I'm going to say here with a caveat is that you have the right people around you. And I think that's really important.
I am with you. I think the combination makes magic that can never be explained with rational thought. Why did we blossom so much? This collection of kids who barely spoke any English, and we all have glorious careers around the world because we were in the right place at the right time with an amazing group of professors.
Yeah, and then how did you come together with those professors? In other words, how did that all happen? It's like magic. It's really amazing to see as well. Nadya, how did you get into leadership?
That was a story long before I left the Kazakhstan land. Right after the collapse of the Soviet Union, so you can picture this. Soviet Union collapsed without any prior warning. There was no referendum, there was no discussion, there was no vote, there was no warning. 3 people got drunk in the woods and signed dissolution documents. The president of our country was in flight trying to stop them at the time of this happening, and he was too late. So one day we wake up, we have no government, no police, no ministers, no healthcare, no nothing. My country was so taken by surprise that it took us almost 3 years to develop our own currency. So there was this absolute vacuum on the ground. And at that point, in just a few years later, in 1992, I believe, an amazing organization was born called Association of Young Leaders. It was born in partnership with California Association of Student Councils. And the goal was to give basic leadership skills to young people in their late teens, early 20s. And imagine my surprise that after being trained at the Association of Young Leaders conferences and then becoming a facilitator and a coach, I come to do my doctorate and I learned that what we were teaching and using was actual science. I was just blown away. But we were introduced to Chapman's theory of group development, for example, a lot of tools on strategic planning and many other things in leadership theory that I use to this day. So I got very lucky that at a very young age, I was introduced to some of the best leadership thinking in the world because of this vacuum, this opening that was left out of the collapse and the rebels of the Soviet Union.
So did you actually have a desire to be a leader? Where was that desire to get involved and learn about leadership? Where did that come from?
But I have a particular point of view on leadership. Right. I do not believe that you are a leader in a sense of a title or a noun. Leadership for me is a space you enter and exit many times a day. Yep. I do leadership, or I enter this space called leadership 20 times a day, and then I exit. And it is a choice, a particular mode of activity or my particular way of operating around the world that comes as a cocktail with many other forms of operation and many other forms of behavior. So I felt like I need the skill set because many times during the day, I need that particular activity if I want to do.
I like it, how you enter into a space and you exit it as well as a leader. And maybe similar to the way I look at it as well as sometimes we have it's like baseball caps, right? Mm-hmm. You might be a coach, a leader, a mentor, and a trainer, possibly. And within a certain discussion or conversation, I might be changing those caps a lot, right? So I might be interested. But I like the way that you put it, that you can enter into that space and exit it out as well, because there will be times where you are the leader and there'll be other times where you're the follower, or you may be doing other things as well. And I really like that whole analogy that you just shared.
I love that. It comes from a magic culture. I think most Aboriginal societies around the world, and Kazakhs are nomads that still to this day don't have their own alphabet. We used to borrow our Arabic and currently we're using Cyrillics, but our own alphabet is oral because we never wrote things down. Nomads don't write things down. So the traditional Aboriginal cultures all look at leadership as a circle, as a dynamic force that is larger than any human being. And you enter the circle and you exit the circle. You don't hold the power indefinitely. So you can find it in a lot of mythical traditions. You will find it in a lot of kind of processes and organizational structures of a typical council in a typical village. It's very circular and it's very much a space type of metaphor.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. And even if we think about today, like if we go and say to the Western world and we look at other countries, that they have communities, that's really a circle. There's the circle, right? And then I don't know about you, Nadya, but I know that in a lot of what you said before about it's not just about a title. Because a lot of people have this title and they think they're the leader. No, you're not. Because if I look around, there's not many people who are actually following you. You just got it there because of the title. But I think the other thing is when being an influential person is really important, but it's also quite hard. In other words, if you've got the title, you're the title, your compensation and benefits are associated with that person. So you better do what they say and listen. That's sometimes how we look at it. But if you go into the community groups, not-for-profits and things like that, a lot of people aren't being paid. They're volunteers. So you as a leader need to be a lot more influential. And so to bring them into the circle, and you've got to go into that circle of being a leader and then sometimes coming out of it as well. I think that's just a beautiful way of saying it. I think it's really, really cool. Now, because you've worked with a lot of leaders and you've probably got a lot of experience around many of them, who's your favorite leader? Now, this person can be alive or from history. Who's your favorite leader and why?
I'm not very original in what I have to say. I believe that it's all about our close family. And for me, definitely my parents and my daughter. This is the surprising thing is that most of what impacted my life comes from very close circle. But I'll give you an example of how my daughter leads my life. She's 17. And half of my stories in business come from stories of my daughter. I'll give you one. A couple of years ago, she was about 14. We were in Croatia and we were walking on the coast and having a conversation about how important she is in our life and how we don't want to lose the connection. And she said, "Oh, don't worry, guys. You are two of my three favorite people." And she's a single child. And we're like, what the heck? We're two of the three. Who is the third who can raise up to the level of what? And we're like, we kind of respectfully said, "Lila, two of the three, who is the third?" And she said, "Me, I'm my favorite person."
Whoa.
To this day, I'm still not reaching that level of honesty. If I honestly say to myself, am I my favorite person? To this day, I'm not. And she's already there.
Wow. That is awesome. Did it leave you speechless?
Yes, to this day, it leaves me speechless because I need to learn that kind of way of leading oneself first. I think when we learn to love ourselves and lead ourselves, fully taking responsibility for every single choice and doing it with a lot of love, then we can lead everyone else. So in that sense, I'm not original. My parents, my child, those are the people who still to this day are my greatest leadership role models.
Yes, Dennis, I guess I'm everything healthcare, right? I've been in the healthcare industry for almost 32 years now. Why I chose the healthcare industry, it gave me the opportunity to pursue my professional goals, but while at the same time being able to do something for the world, being able to give back. And in the healthcare industry, we are in the unique position to not only help provide for our families, but also be able to help the lives of millions of people around the world. And so that's why I chose healthcare. I had the fortune of working for some of the greatest companies in the world, companies that are now Sanofi, Aventis, Pfizer, Roche Labs, and most recently Becton Dickinson and now NASCO Healthcare. I feel very privileged that I had the chance to work at these organizations to build the leadership skills, mobilize teams, and ultimately have that impact around the world. So I'm really excited to be on this podcast. I do believe that the world is changing. It is a very fast-paced market, and I believe that leaders need to adapt to change as well.
Yeah, I totally agree, Ken. And Ken, tell me, let's talk about a little bit about healthcare, as you said, and leaders, because are leaders really looking after themselves well enough? They're working long hours, they're under a lot of stress, pressure. As you said, the world's changing. So both from a social perspective, technology, business, it's just changing so fast. Are leaders really looking after themselves well?
Probably not as well as they should, Dennis, right? Leaders are like an athlete to some degree. They're highly competitive, willing to give everything in which they have to be successful, and have a tireless appetite to succeed. And as a result, you probably work a little bit longer than you should. You probably miss some school events, whether it be dance recitals or sporting events. You probably don't get to take as many vacations with your family as you would like to. But at the same time, you're probably satisfying a lot of those professional goals and objectives that you had for yourself. And hopefully at the same time, being able to put your family in a position to be able to reach some of their goals and ambitions.
And for you in your career and the different executive roles that you've had, how have you worked in the work-life balance? How have you done that?
Hey, it's really difficult, Dennis. I believe that you've got to have a work ethic which is second to none to really have an impact around the world. You've got to have a commitment to practice the best habits, right? And you don't get to do those habits 3 days a week or 5 days a week. You've got to wake up every morning with the desire and ambition to make a difference. And as a result of appetite, that desire doesn't stop at 5 p.m. Therefore, it goes deep into the night and sometimes transitions into the weekends. But what I was saying is that I've got an incredible support network, whether it be my wife, which is my absolute best friend. She enables me to be able to do the work in which I do and commit myself the way in which I do. As well, I've got a team that I work with that definitely has the capability and talent to be successful, as long as I'm there to give them the resources and support to be able to achieve their objective.
Tremendous. Thank you. There's some real strong insights there, listeners, as we're listening to Ken as he's sharing his experience there around how he does the work-life balance. And it is interesting because we all are under pressure and we do find things and people go, is there a difference between work and there's a difference between life? That is your life, isn't it? It's part of your life and it's all part of it and it's a package, but it's really interesting. So Ken, how did you get into leadership?
I assume that my mom and dad prepared me to be a leader all of my life. They gave me enough independence and enough support to allow me to venture out, take risks, fail, learn from those failures. But at the same time, they were there to support me during those failures. And I think as a result of that, that helped to build the muscle, the leadership muscle in me. Second, my mom always told me, be a leader, don't be a follower. You set the path. You do what you think is best for you. And third, my grandmother always told me, listen, you can do anything you put your mind to as long as you're willing to put in the work. So therefore, I think that from being a youngster, I started to develop some of those leadership skills. But in my professional career, I just had the great fortune of working for great companies, some other great leaders that saw something great in me, and they were willing to invest, groom, coach, mentor, and guide. And as a result, I was able to elevate into different roles. Those roles, Dennis, are really what helped to shape me into the leader in which I am. It's those individual experiences, whether it was the first role I had as a sales consultant or being the worldwide president of the diabetes care business unit at Becton Dickinson. Each of those experiences helped to shape me into the leader in which I am today.
Yeah, tremendous. And wonderful to see the foundation there from the family side, of course, and then you building on that. And as you said, it's about having that support network around you, first of all, around the family, and then, of course, and through the corporate world and helping you, and they seeing something in you and helping you develop as well, which is really important. I think the other thing I say to people too, Ken, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, is for a lot of people, they rely on the organization to develop them. And I'm like, don't rely on the organization. Do what you need to do to develop as a leader. How have you done that over the years?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you have to have an insatiable appetite of curiosity, right? You've got to want to continuously learn and develop. So whether that be reading leadership books, taking a leadership course, observing and monitoring the behaviors and decision-making of other leaders that you respect and value, asking questions to gain understanding, not to be understood. All of those things, I think, help to shape me into the leader. I also wanted to go back really quickly, Dennis, to the work-life balance and why I'm able to do that. I mentioned my wife being my best friend, but she is equally as passionate as I am about my professional success as I am. And as a result, she is motivating to me. She's inspiring to me. She is my greatest sounding board when I'm facing challenges at work. And she gives me perspective and helps me make better decisions.
Yeah, tremendous. And I love it. That's a real special thing to have in your life, in the sense that when I say thing, person to have in your life, and also that ability to bounce off each other. And I really like what you say, just as passionate as I am about it. And that's really good. So Ken, you mentioned before about some leaders, and I don't know whether it's one of these ones that you're going to mention, as you mentioned before, but this person could be alive or from history. Who would be your favorite leader and why?
Yeah, that's a very tough question, Dennis, but I have had the chance to work for some amazing leaders, whether that be Fred Hassan, Carrie Cox, Ed Ludwig, Vince Berlinza, Mike Valentino. I've had the opportunity to work for them and learn from them. But I would have to say that my favorite leader, whom I never had a chance to meet, but I read a lot about, is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And the reason why he's my favorite, Dennis, is because, in my opinion, he was authentic. He was a genuine leader. He was purpose-driven. He was inspirational and motivational to people around the world. And he was resilient, right? He wasn't willing to quit. And he was fighting for something that was bigger than just himself. And so as a result, I choose Martin Luther King Jr. as my favorite, but there are many. There are many.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting how his legacy continues? Even though he's not here, and as you said, you haven't met him, but the thing is, it still continues. It's still there. And I think as leaders, that's what we need to do, is we need to set up our legacy for the future and we do things. Yeah.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And as I reflect upon Dr. Martin Luther King, his passion was fueled by his purpose, right? He wanted to make a difference in the world. And I think that was food for him. It fueled him. And I'm assuming that helped him overcome some of the obstacles, resistance, and challenge that he faced as he was making his fight.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.